I like to think that I have a pretty good knowledge of the Bible and the stuff in it, and that most of the stuff in it I can explain. But there's two things today that are difficult for me to explain in two separate readings. 2 Corinthians 12, Paul writes, I know a person in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. I have no idea what that means. And so for those of us who are in the Bible study doing 1 Corinthians, we're not going to do 2 Corinthians. Sorry. And then Jesus, this one is more puzzling actually, Mark 6, where Jesus says that he goes to his hometown, and it says that he could do no deed of power there because of their unbelief. That Jesus' power was actually restricted. It was limited because of their limited faith. And that's something that troubles me, and I don't know the answer, but I do know that it's important to talk about faith so that when Jesus shows up, our faith is not something that limits his ability to do works of power in our lives. So today I want to talk about faith. I want to talk about faith, I think, in a way that I've probably never talked about faith before. I think there's three important pieces to faith that I've never really put together before, and today I want to talk about those. Faith is in different tenses. I think faith starts with remembering our past. Remembering the past when God might have shown up in your life and done something in your life that is hard to explain other than God showing up. Because our memory is important. Our memory, has anybody ever golfed at Iron Horse Golf Course? There, on the second hole, it's kind of a dogleg right, and on the right is a neighborhood. And actually, one of my friends lives in that neighborhood. If you go to Calvary, his name is David Larson. And on the left is a creek. And the first time I played there, I hit it in Dave's backyard. And so the next time I got up there, all I could think about was hitting it in Dave's yard, right? And so what do? When you're standing over and you hit it to the right and you're going in someone's yard, you say, don't hit it right, don't hit it right, don't hit it right. What do? You hit it left into the creek. And so the next time you get up there, you say, don't hit it left, don't hit it left, don't hit it left. What do? You hit it right. And it went this way for me for about 6 years of hitting it left and hitting it right. Now, the good thing is knowing Dave, I can go in his yard and get my ball. I just can't play it where it is. So I decided that if I just hit a pitching wedge off the tee, it'll get me in the fairway, and just play a par 4 as a par 5. But what's important, the reason I tell the story is because our memory, the things we remember, influences so much the things we do today. And if we can find a story in our past of God showing up, of God being there for you, of God answering a prayer, then that faith can carry us through today when we may be having trouble believing that God is there, that God is with us. That's kind of what Ezekiel was called to do, right? God calls Ezekiel, a prophet, go to the people of Israel and tell them they need to change their ways. Remind them of the times that I was there for them, and remind them that when I was there for them, when I called them my people, all the good things that I did for them and all the ways that they trusted me. They have been a stubborn people, and they have gone away from trusting me. Remind them what I have done for them. There are certainly times in life where I struggle with faith, where we all struggle with faith. But in those moments, the first thing I do is think of a time in my life when God was there. When God said, I got this, Nick. I have a number of those stories that I can think of. Most recently, the story, I've told this before, in November, the first week of November, when Michelle and I were in a doctor's office in Fort Worth, and the doctor came in and said, well, I'm really sorry to tell you, but you're going to have another miscarriage. And if you come back in a couple days in my other office, we'll do what we need to do. And I told Michelle, I said, no, we're not. We're not having another miscarriage. She's wrong. She's wrong. I'm not even I'm not even going to imagine what it would be like to have another one, because I know we're going to have one. And through prayer, I just felt the confidence of God telling me, nope, they made a mistake. They read the wrong screen, or they read it too early, or they read it in the wrong way, but we're having a baby. And Michelle wasn't, I don't know if she shared the same confidence that I did, but we were both shocked. I wasn't as shocked, I guess I should say. She was shocked when we went on Friday. And oh, our mistake. There's a heartbeat. Everything's perfect. Moments like that where you just know God is there are few and far between in life, but they're worth remembering. Because the faith of our past gives us the courage to have faith today. And quite frankly, it takes courage to be a person of faith. It takes courage to believe in God who we can't see and who we can't prove exists, but yet we still know that God is there. I was thinking about courage yesterday. Have you ever actually read the Declaration of Independence? The whole thing? I was reading it yesterday and I thought, what courage these men had to actually sit down and write this document. Well, I thought, it doesn't take a lot of courage to write it. It takes more courage to sign it and publish it. Because you can write anything, but if you don't send it. Reading the history of just knowing that the Revolutionary War had been going on over a year already, and many of the people thought, we're going to come to terms of peace with Great Britain, with England. We're not going to be independent. We're still going to be part of them. We're just going to have more rights. We're going to have our seat in Parliament, all these things. But they came to the conclusion, no, that's not going to happen. We just need to declare our independence. And so they drafted this document, and they all signed it, knowing that there's a chance, because their name is on this document, that they could be killed. And yet they did it anyway. What great courage. And I think, we need that type of courage today in our lives. And we need that type of courage in our faith. Because if we truly believe what Paul says today, that therefore I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities for the sake of Christ. For whenever I am weak, then I am strong. If we really believe that being weak for the sake of Christ really gives us strength, then we need courage. So what does it mean to be weak? I think this is where Paul surrenders his life to God. And I know as Lutherans, we don't really use that word surrender a lot. That's more of a Baptist word, that, I've surrendered to Christ. But I think we all need to. And I think this is what takes courage. This is what faith is. It's surrendering to God and saying, I know that your plan for my life is better than my own. I know that your ideas are better than mine. I know that your will is better than mine. And so I am going to completely trust in you and completely follow you. And that takes courage. It takes courage to really love your neighbor. It takes courage to forgive somebody who hurt you. It takes courage to visit a new church. It takes courage to live the life of faith. It takes courage to pray in public. It takes courage to wear a cross around your neck. But I think our courage comes from what we remember, and our courage comes from our hope for the future. And I think faith, if it does nothing else, it gives us hope for the future. Faith gives us hope that in the end, goodness defeats evil. That God wins. That love beats hatred. That light beats darkness. I was thinking, I was thinking of our soldiers, American soldiers. More specifically, I was thinking of World War II soldiers, because that's what I've read the most about. And trying to imagine what it must have been like for them to be sent over across the ocean to the Pacific and to Europe, not knowing if they'd ever come back. Many of them didn't, but still, what was going through their mind on the way? What was going through their mind? I would have to think that they were going because they knew that goodness needed to defeat evil. And that is what motivated them to be soldiers. And I think that's what motivates us to live a life of faith, to know that goodness, in the end, defeats evil. Because, as much as we want to talk about how great America is in church, you're not here to hear about revolution, you're here to hear about resurrection. That's what we proclaim. America is a great country, but God is greater. The story of resurrection is the story of goodness defeating evil for good, for all times, for eternity. Evil has been banished. Vanquished is the foe. The last chapter of our lives has already been written. We are spending eternity with God in a place where evil is not welcome. And that is our hope. And that's what gives us courage today. Because it's much easier to believe today if we remember what God has planned for us in our future. Amen.